Poor, poor white straight men. They're so abused and neglected in today's American society, aren't they? Well, the good news is the Republican Party is standing up for you. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So in today's newspaper, I saw two articles, which I will, of course, link to down below, talking about how these poor, abused men are just so harassed and neglected in American society. In one article in the New York Times, we have 8 conservative men talking about how they make no apologies for their views, how they want to be able to engage in locker room talk and harass women and do whatever they want without fear of any kind of shade being cast by anybody, no matter how offensive the things are that they say. And also in today's New York Times, we have another article talking about how as GOP candidates face accusations, rivals tread carefully. Now, what this article is about are the multitude of Republican candidates for high office in this upcoming election who are credibly accused of sexual harassment and sexual abuse. We have, of course, Eric Greitens, the former governor of Missouri, who's running for U.S. Senate there and probably is going to win the nomination, who tied up a woman who's not his wife and sexually abused her. Then you have Herschel Walker, a great athlete, no doubt about it, but who argues that he has multiple personalities, some of which are violent and abuse women, including, by the way, holding a loaded gun at the head of his ex-wife. That candidate, of course, won the endorsement by Donald Trump. Then we have Max Miller, another Trump-backed candidate who actually worked in the Trump White House, who apparently was dating one of Donald Trump's multiple press secretaries, Stephanie Grisham, and when she broke up with him, he decided to beat her up. That sounds reasonable. Then in Nebraska, we have Charles Herbster, who's the leading Republican candidate for governor of that state, who had, get this, a Republican state senator accuse him of sexually assaulting her when she was 22. None of this should surprise us, given the fact that this is the party led by the pussy grabber himself, Donald Trump. And if anything, it almost seems like in the Republican Party, being a sex-abusing misogynist is a prerequisite for running for office. Now, it may seem strange that these two articles kind of go together, but in fact they do, because what they ultimately point to, again, is the fact that this Republican Party has basically based its entire message on this idea of the aggrieved white male. God forbid that white men be prohibited from behaving in the same kind of sexually aggressive, misogynistic, and homophobic behavior that really was common in the past. I mean, I remember as a teenager when it was common for people to hurl slurs impugning someone's sexuality at each other. And just slightly before that time, of course, we had the period when men were routinely paid more than women because, of course, they had to take care of a family at home. And secretaries were expected to sexually service their bosses. And just slightly before that, we had that children's rhyme, which I learned, about catching a tigger by the toe, instead using the N-word. And all those things were deemed as socially acceptable back then. Well, now, not so much. And that really is the central claim of conservatism that these people are talking about these days. They want to return us back to an era when white men could do whatever they wanted without any kind of fear of consequences for their behavior. That they could simply take what they wanted when they felt that a woman was sexually attractive without fear of any kind of backlash for what they did. That they should be able to undermine the credibility of a woman who's working in the workplace by talking about the shape of her butt. This is the era that these people want to return us back to, and this is really what the Republican Party stands for nowadays. I mean, with Donald Trump, his pussy-grabbing comment did not hurt him. Actually, it helped him, because it demonstrated to these aggrieved white men that they could say whatever they wanted, behave in any way they wanted, no matter how offensive it was to anybody who wasn't white and male. And not only could they get away with it, but they'd be elected president of the United States, for crying out loud. We saw a similar example of this with Brett Kavanaugh, our Supreme Court's beer-chugging champion, who after Christine Blasey Ford heroically stood up and told her story, a story which the more we find out about appears to have been true. And what's more is, had he been thoroughly investigated, it appears that there are other women who would have come to the fore, who would have supported the fact that he was basically a spoiled, white, rich brat who believed he could take whatever he wanted simply by virtue of his privilege. And yet, just recently, during the Ketanji Brown-Jackson confirmation hearings, nomination hearings for a Supreme Court justice who, frankly, is absolutely above reproach and who, unlike Brett Kavanaugh, did not benefit from innumerable privileges that were simply bestowed at his feet by virtue of the fact that he was rich, white, and male. We had Lindsey Graham, the superstar senator from MAGA, talking about how the Democrats ruined Brett Kavanaugh's life. Well, if that's the case, I'd like to have my life ruined that way. Have to sit through some unpleasant hearings to end up on the Supreme Court. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. But that's the point, is that we have this idea that white straight males, especially those with money, should be able to do whatever they want without fear of consequences. And the second that they face any consequences, they have reason to be aggrieved, forgetting about the fact that for the rest of their lives, they've simply had all these privileges laid out their feet for nothing other than the fact that they have white skin and a penis. This reminds me of a saying that I once heard, which is that men in a relationship are most afraid that a woman will laugh at them, whereas women are most afraid that a man will kill them. Somehow, those don't seem the equivalent. But yet that's the point. In our society, we don't hold men to the same standard that we hold everybody else to. And that level of privilege is, frankly, precisely what the Republican Party is looking to protect. They may be doing their best to avoid taking a stand on any other real issue out there, but if there's one issue that they've been extremely consistent on, that is the one. Well, if you want to check out another video where I talk about toxic white male privilege, check out this one over here. It appears that there's absolutely no end to the privilege that is extended to Brett Kavanaugh. And yet, Republicans still view him as a victim. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.